As the days draw close to the 2023 general elections, political activities are heightening, with political parties and their members vying for various elective posts at the state and national levels. An American human rights activist, Long On, says, and I quote, "Voting is not only our right, it's our power," end of quote. As true as this may be, people across Nigeria seem not to have given much thought to this and the inherent fact that voting is a catalyst for positive change. Statistics from past elections in Nigeria have shown poor voter turnout when compared with population estimates, as the figures have not been a true representation of the voting population. And so, on this episode of Frontiers, the focus is the power of the voter card. My name is Obiageli Ugoke, and our guest is the Director General of the National Orientation Agency, NOA, Garba Abari. It's a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is mine.
The program continues in just a moment. Stay with us. As the political sphere is heating up, there is need to remind the electorate about the powers inherent in voting, but that cannot be separated from the fact that every eligible Nigerian obtains a voter card. What's your take?
Thank you very much. The season is here again. As you rightly pointed out, the political temperature of the country is actually getting heated, and all stakeholders, individuals, institutions of state, and all others that are involved in this process are becoming up and doing. The political process usually is something that is an ongoing process. When I say the season is here again, I mean that the electoral season is here again. But before the electoral season, there have been processes that have been on precedent to this time. The voter registration, the continuous voter registration, activities within the political parties that are the critical stakeholders in this matter, activities within institutions of state, the civil society organizations, the political parties, government institutions, security agencies, INEC, to mention but a few. All of these have been working, in the space allotted each, leading up to what we are seeing now. Now, before the main elections in 2023, we expect that we expect some teaser elections, what I call the teaser elections in Ikiti in June and in Oshun, July, August, around July, August. So, in these two states, activities have been heightened, voters are being sensitized, the politicians are equally being sensitized, advocacy visits to critical stakeholders, traditional rulers, new religious leaders, youth and women groups are actually being sensitized, each one to play a role that is expected of him or her or them at a time like this. And one of such roles is actually the idea of trying as much as possible to make people aware of the import of coming out to vote. But not only coming out to vote, but actually to vote the kind of leadership that we all aspire to see, the kind of leadership that will live up to the expectations of the electorate. This is what we expect everybody is doing, that has a role to play in this should be doing. The NOA, happily, has been on ground doing this alongside other stakeholders, the security agencies, the religious groups, the traditional rulers, the political parties. About a year ago, the National Orientation Agency had cause to call for for a national summit of the political parties, synthesizing of their roles towards a peaceful, credible, fair, and free elections. And I have a sense that going forward, that kind of a platform that we utilized in 2021 will also be reincarnated before we go to the main elections in 2023. However, we want to see, and of course all our eyes are on the Ikiti and the Osun elections, which I call teasers. And whatever are coming out from these two will be like a harbinger of what we should expect to come in 2023.
All right, sir. The idea here is to make the people actually understand that they are the determiners of the structure that should shape the society. But why is it very important for them to vote?
It's very important for them to vote, but more important is for them to appreciate the power that lies in their hands. I think in this country we have done enough of talking. We have done enough of lamentation. Wherever you find a group of citizens, 2, 3, 4, they talk about our challenges as a country. They talk about what they want the country to do. They talk about the nature of the leadership the kind of leadership they would want to see in place. But they also tend to forget that all of these are but cumulative responsibilities of what really lies in their hands. What's that? The power of the vote. But then there are also issues that have to do with our democratic values. What we have seen is that year in, year out, election season after election season, we see the power of the vote increasingly becoming less and less impactful in the determination of how the leaders actually do emerge. What do I mean? An extensive degree of voter apathy. We have seen this in the recently concluded local government elections at the FCT, where less than 1% of the entire total voter population turned out to vote. And this kind of situation impacts on the legitimacy of the kind of leadership that is thrown up. We have seen in the recently concluded Anambra State election, where less than 30% of the voters actually turned out to vote. This impacts on the kind of legitimacy that throws up the leadership that emerges from this kind of election. So there is, on the one hand, the importance of the voter to realize that he has a potent tool in his or her hands. There is, on the other hand, the civic realization of the voter to come out and utilize this. But in all of this, there has to actually be an understanding and appreciation of the very delicate balance between what the voter expects, what propels the voter to come out and vote, and what, on the other hand, makes the voter realize that he has a potent tool in his hands, but does not butter, and therefore, but does not make him bother to come out to vote. And in all of this is the fact that we have a political process that is suffering from a very widespread trust deficit.
In the past presidential election, which was in February 2019, the turnout was also poor. So going by these experiences, what factors affect voter participation in Nigeria?
Well, I think the issue of very low voter participation is not only something peculiar to Nigeria alone. It's a global issue. if you go by the statistics from all parts of the world, is actually a global issue. But then, in the case of Nigeria, we must do something to address fundamentally the issue of governance, the issue of trust between elected, support, appointed leadership, as vis-a-vis their responsibility to the citizens. And this therefore brings me to the issue of voter apathy, leading up to the very worrisome concern of vote buying and vote selling, and therefore how all of this continuously impact on the character of our democratic process, and of course on the credibility of the electoral process. So it's actually a systemic problem which must have to be holistically addressed with increased civic education, not only by institutions like the National Orientation Agency, but by the political parties themselves, whom unfortunately do not seem to have learned anything and have forgotten anything from the experiences of the past. What we see in our political, in the political process is actually a set of political parties that just see themselves as mere contestation platforms. The moment the elections are over, they just all go back to sleep. Parties that are supposed to be principal beneficiaries of the citizens' participation in the electoral process actually don't bother to go to educate the citizens on their programs, their activities, what they stand for, what they intend to do, how they do it when they come into office, what promises they keep, what promises are unable to keep, why they how they go back to citizens to explain why they cannot keep such promises, and this way you expand the engagement space between institutions and the citizens. But because they don't do that, you allow civil society to occupy the space. You allow you expect certain government institutions, with restricted credibility to do the explanation as a result of the trust deficit between citizens and the state to do the explanation. This actually accounts for largely why we see a lot of voter apathy. Many instances do arise, when citizens, when asked, why don't you come to out to vote, they say, well, that's basically three things. For the elite, they will tell you they cannot afford the mad behavior and the unruly behavior of a typical polling booth appear on an election day. Others will tell you, well, we don't bother to vote because our votes don't really matter. But we are increasingly seeing that INEC is doing more and more to increase, the credibility of our electoral process. And over the years, the reforms that have been put in place actually tend to give INEC, a very high profile in terms of executing these reforms and improving on the electoral process day by day, election after election. However, when citizens feel that their votes still don't count, it's not that the votes don't count really, but that they see the counting of the vote in terms of what they see on ground. In terms of what they see on ground. But when you elect a candidate at the end of the election and he turns up and you don't see him until another election cycle, then citizens begin to wonder, why bother? When you elect a candidate and you don't see him until another election's time, and he counts with bags of money, to influence voters, of course, voters will take the money and of course refuse to even turn up on the election day. Why? I've taken my own part of the national cake. So these are all issues, systemic issues that need to be holistically addressed on a continuous, basis, sensitization, advocacy, education, but most importantly, civic education, political education, so that the citizens will begin to know the import, of the power that lies in their hands, which is the voters' card. What do they need it for? Throw out a leadership that they don't like, throw out a leadership that has not been responsive, throw out a leadership that does not address their problems, social, economic, and political, throw out a leadership that does not relate and engage with them, throw out a leadership that they feel does not adequately represent them, and they bring in. That is actually the beauty of democracy.
We need you to lay more emphasis on what can be done to address this issue, inhibiting voter participation in the country.
First and foremost, on the part of government, to ensure that there is good governance. That's one. Two, political inclusion. And by this, I mean involvement of the citizens from bottom up. Engagement of the citizens from bottom up. But what do we see? Bulk of our young men and the women, that constitute more than 50% of our national demography, get engaged mainly at two levels. The elite element of them get involved only on social media platforms. Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, WhatsApp, to go this. And what you see is actually nothing but a lot of very bitter breakbacks, among themselves. Because not knowing where the country is coming from, not knowing the political history of the country, not knowing where we are headed, you feel sad when you look at what you see on the social media that is being exchanged by our youth. That's one. The second are the lower ranks of the younger people whose engagement on the political process stops only at the pasting of posters, the shouting at the campaigns, the dancing at the campaigns, the thuggery at the campaigns and during the election, snatching of ballot boxes, intimidation of opponents of either of the contending parties or any, and what have you. All of this is actually but an outcome of poor civic and political education. And I am saying that this is actually something that will have to call, that calls for a broad-based stakeholder involvement. INEC, political parties, security agencies, religious leaders, political traditional rulers, organizations like the National Orientation Agency, the media, and also the candidates themselves. Two is the restoration or the bringing back of issue-based politics, so that people actually follow political parties, follow political processes on the basis of what the parties represent.
All right, let's pause for a while. We'll get back to you. This is Frontiers, and we are taking a look at 2023 elections and the power of the voter card. The discussion continues shortly after this timeout.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency.
You're welcome back. Mr. Barry, why is voter apathy a problem in Nigeria?
Voter apathy is a problem because it touches on the credibility of the kind of leadership that is being thrown. If you have a situation where there are about 2 or over 2 million registered voters, and only 100,000 or slightly above 100,000 turn up to vote. You know that definitely that's a problem. And this, I say, does not give room for a lot of comfort, because democracy is about popular representation. If in a state of over 2 million people registered, over 2 million registered voters, only above 100,000 come out to vote, or less than, or cumulatively for all the parties put together, less than 300,000 come out to vote for all the parties in the contest. That gives you reason for concern that this representation is no longer popular.
Now, your agency tasked with the responsibility of promoting patriotism, national unity, and development. What is the NOA doing to sensitize Nigerians on this all-important civic responsibility?
We have been sending jingles every now and then, reminding citizens that you cannot just sit down and be complaining about poor leadership. You can't be sitting down and be complaining about corruption, about poor infrastructure, about inadequate social services, inability to go to school, for our children to go to school, no water for our people to drink, no healthcare delivery for our people to go to, high maternal and infant mortality, poor security. You know, when you know that you have in your hands the power to actually change this through a leadership that can address these matters. We have found the media as a very potent tool, you know, to partner on this. That's one. Two is direct engagement through our town hall meetings. You know, what we call the local government assembly. We may not be able to have all the resources to go all around the country and talking to all the local government people in there, but in the places we have gone to, we have engaged citizens in their places of domicile and spoken to them in the languages they do understand, you know, to make them aware. So we engage directly and we have their pulse. We take their pulse. We take their opinions. We aggregate all this and we put them in an articulated manner so that we send to the relevant agencies that this and this are what the citizens are saying on matters like this, and this please address. You know, this it comes by way of our special reports and by way of our Pulse of the Nation report. Now, I have told you that we have two teaser elections, you know, in Ikiti and in Oshun and in Ikiti. Our community mobilization officers move from word to word, local government to local government, sending out handbills that have been written and translated in the Yoruba languages, in Yoruba languages, in the Yoruba language, different Yoruba dialects.
The local languages.
No, different Yoruba dialects, because maybe the kind of Yoruba that is being spoken in rural Ikiti is not that. It's not the type you find on the street of Lagos. So we send out such people, and mind you, the community mobilization officers are people who have been sourced from that community, speak the language of the community, you know, and they understand the culture and the tradition of the people. That's unworst, you know, in the general values of the communities, and we talk to them. We go to traditional rulers to appeal for them because of the very strategic role that the strategic position they play. You know, they occupy, so that they help us propagate, you know, these sensitization messages. And we ask them to call their local chiefs down the line so that these messages get to where it is supposed to go.
All right, Mr. Albari, let's just quickly take the last one. In the words of an American political scientist and analyst, every election is determined by those who show up. So going by this, what is your charge to Nigerians with regards to voting and governance?
As an agency of government that has this responsibility of creating a necessary society that is democratic and disciplined, we shall continue to do just like pastors and the imams do. You know, we all know the virtues and the values that lie ahead, the benefits of adhering to good behavior as we actually look up to going to heaven. But in spite of all this, we all do know what we need to go to heaven and what if we do, we go to hell.
Exactly.
But yet we need to be reminded every Friday and every Sunday and every Friday and every Sunday on the field. So the anyway is doing this consistently. We shall continue to do this. You know, we keep talking, we keep expanding the frontiers of the engagement, we keep sending out bills, we keep getting NTA. Please do it whether we pay you or we don't pay you. Please send our messages to the people, you know, because of your very wide reach. We talk to the traditional media. Please, even if it is on loan basis, you know,
just go ahead.
Just go ahead, because we have a responsibility to one another. All we care for is a society that is peaceful, that is secure, that is democratic, that is disciplined. So everyone has a role. Please, Nigerians, as we are moving toward the 2023 elections, be of good behavior, be having of what good to expect as we go towards 2023. Don't sell your vote. And if they come to buy the vote, to buy your vote, don't sell. And the politicians, stop buying votes. Because you buy this behavior, you are impacting very negative values on our democracy.
Thank you very much, the Director General, NOA. We thank you, and it's a pleasure having you on Frontiers, Mr. Garuba Bari.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
My pleasure.
We have been taking a look at the power of the voter card, and our guest has been the Director General of the National Orientation Agency, NOA, Mr. Garuba Bari. My name is Obiageli Ugwoke. Thank you very much for staying with us.